darkest recesses of the mind, an ancient memory stirs, and a buried hunger emerges. Hi, and welcome to the Missed Apex Formula 3 Challenge as we are back and better than ever. To open our 9th season, we will journey to Japan and visit the classic Okayama circuit with its devastating hairpins, savage S's, and a monster grid that will demand total commitment. To get us underway today, please give a warm welcome to your commentator, Scott Stuffy Duffy.
Welcome everyone to the Missed Apex F3 Challenge. Thank you, Trumpets, for a beautiful intro there. Yes, season 9 of this iRacing community season. Unbelievable turnout once again. A great turnout from all the Missed Apex listeners. This continues to grow year in, year out with viewership and the participation. For the first round, we are at the Okayama circuit, a free circuit that's been on the platform of iRacing for many a year now and is popular with real-life motorsport series like the MX-5s and the Super Formula. The last time Missed Apex actually came to this circuit was a good few years ago in the MX-5 rookies, and our panelists and our community are a lot more experienced on iRacing, but doesn't mean they're necessarily any cleaner, as we will see today. Now, this year's format is slightly different compared to previous seasons, where the aim of the game is to have fun, but we know the competitive nature of our racers. Some who participate in real life and only in the virtual world will be really high. So expect great wheel-to-wheel action and plenty of carnage, but fun is the aim of the game. So the Lara F3, a long-time staple of the Missed Apex community, is the car of choice. As always, a great car that is personally a car that I built my own channel on, and this is why I was found by the one and only Spanners and Mr. Van Gene and Carl Power and became part of the Missed Apex crew. But the season, well, we have a slightly change of different format. We have only 2 races this time around of slightly varying distances. The main race will consist of a 30-minute duration with a mandatory pit stop. We'll also then have a second race with a reverse grid sprint race with a 20-minute duration. It provides us with a great opportunity for some good racing with the drivers who are expected to be very quick at the front in the main race, with it all to do, no doubt, in the second race, and give many of you Missed Apex listeners participating in this an opportunity to win a race against our panelists. So today we are going to pull in Spanners, the one and only host of the Missed Apex podcast. He is going to give us a live track guide around the famous Okayama circuit. He seems to be in the pits right at this moment, but let's drag him in and see if we can get him out there for some all-important laps. Spanners, how is it going?
It's good, man. You're right that there's going to be some chaos coming, and I think I've tried to instill in the drivers like a be chill clause, but
good luck. Good luck.
Well, my thinking is like, if this was real, even if it was like Formula Fords or whatever, or you were going out in some stock cars, you wouldn't want to risk your car, but there's no risk here. So how do you get that across? So I've tried to create almost a social stigma, like we should have a shame bell. If you're the one that wrecks everyone on turn 1, shame.
Yes, well, it is a circuit. I disagree, but it's a circuit that is quite easy. As you said, there's no risk here. I believe there's plenty of risk, especially in the F3 car, as we are on board. Apologies who that was, who just went off into the gravel there. And
that was me while I'm trying to do push to talk.
Well, get yourself sorted and we'll join on board with you so that you can get
that's fine. I'll do a nice little warm-up lap, get my tyres warm, and then we'll talk through a lap of Okayama. But what I meant by the no risk was that in a sim, there's obviously no risk.
Yes. Well, to an extent, there is a risk to your wrists if you, depending on what wheelbase and
with
how
the direct
high
drive wheel.
How high?
Yeah. But I think sometimes there's no. People can say, right, if I'm really risky 3 times, then I might get a good result once, and I think that's what I'm trying to avoid. Okay, so obviously I won't be able to talk in the braking zones.
No one is going to take that advice that I think you've put out the Spanners, but look, if you don't try it, you don't get at the end of the day. But how about we go on board with you and you take it away and give us
cool. I'm just going to let some drivers go past here. So we're going to wait for Luke Power, Kyle's brother, and Stephen Taylor, that Aussie. You've always got to give the Aussies a little bit more room.
Take it away.
So around that final corner, onto the start, finish straight. A lot of these corners are early braking zones, so you want to make sure that you got your position early and then drive through the corner. So coming up here, we're going to brake just after the 100 marker board, down into fourth, and then we want to get an early drive out of there. My push to torque is on the same button as my downshift. So here, just a little lift through this corner. If you go flat out, you'll end out in the gravel, and that is affecting all the driver's grip through this corner. This is effectively a straight. Now, this is the most important corner on the whole track. Get yourself into third gear, and then you have to just follow this inside line. If you go too far out, you're going to lose a lot of traction. If you try and keep it too tight, you're going to end up spinning, like we just saw, I think, poor Tom there. Into this really hard braking zone, you're going to need all the gears. So that final second gear to help you really bite down into the corner. And these two are very, very dangerous. Just drag the brakes in order to let the steering turn. So you're not really braking to lose speed. You're braking to move the weight over and then trying to pick when you can accelerate. Really is about feeling the weight in your hands. Fiddly section now. Second gear for both those corners, and you can hear how much I'm straining against the force feedback. There's a really difficult pit entry, but here it's flat out to the right hand side, and then it's important here, brake nice and early onto the brakes. You're already accelerating at that apex as you go towards a very moderate lap of Okayama.
I will say to many of viewers, if you're tuning into that right now, that is how not to do a lap at Okayama. There are some apexes in there that,
come on!
do
I'm
exist.
trying to do it while talking and doing push to talk. It was a tour of it, not a demonstration of the hardest
It was
lap.
a good effort, however you did. There are some apexes on this corner at this circuit, Spanners. I suggest you try and find them to better improve your chances in the race. But yes, that is Okayama circuit there, provided by your Missed Apex host, Spanners, while he is trying to multitask. And hopefully he'll have his push to talk button on a other than on a shifter, not the best setup. But yes, it is a circuit that does have plenty of overtaking opportunities here. Hence why we have come to this circuit for the opening round of the Missed Apex F3 Challenge, as we're on board with Carl Power in his bright green livery, because he does not want to be missed. He wants to know he wants you to know who he is. He acts quiet on the Mixed Apex podcast and the MotoGP podcast, and he acts quite reserved. But when it comes to racing, he wants you to know who he is. So if you have if you see that bright green livery, you know exactly who is coming up behind you, or you are racing. But there's plenty of Missed Apex panelists out there from the MotoGP podcast and the F1 podcast who you will be racing alongside today. Of course, they do want to race you fairly. I know you guys want to race them hard, but please race them as fairly as possible, because no one enjoys it better.
They're getting a driver brief at the moment, Stuffy, so they can't hear you. But I will say there is a bit of a phenomenon where people either go, "Oh, that's the guy from the podcast, I want to race him as hard as possible," or they say something, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to take out Spanners." So sometimes people will fight you tooth and nail, and other times they'll jump out of your way. So one of the things of the driver brief has been for Rich, our Malden, our race controller, to say,
and Spanner's push to talk seems to have failed. It's most likely that he's downshifting in the middle of the corner.
I was downshifting. Yeah,
there
I'll make
we
sure
go.
I turn off my
See,
push to talk.
I know you so well,
Hey,
Spanners.
Scott, thank you so much for taking on the comms duties here on Missed Apex Motorsport. If you need me at any time, pull me in, whether I'm driving or not. At worst, I'll pause in the braking zones. But I hope to see you in the build-up to other races, if nothing else.
Definitely appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing how, for the first time ever, commentating on 60 odd 40 plus race cars on a small circuit is going to fare. So it's also I'm looking forward to the challenge myself. I hope you're up for the challenge of dealing with it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've commentated a few of these, and it's looking for the close gaps. Obviously on the stream, people want to see if what the panel are up to, and what the leaders are up to as well. But I think it will string out after the first couple of laps. So I think you'll find that if you look up and down the timing sheets, it's going to be pretty clear which battles are the ones you're going to want to focus on.
Most definitely. I'm looking forward to it. Well, Spanners, good luck. We'll leave you to it to get some well-needed practice in and find those apexes that you so sorely missed there on our track guide. And yeah, hopefully when we jump on board with you next, you'll be faring better. Thank you, everyone. Not long till qualifying gets underway. 38 seconds until we head into, no doubt, what is going to be a very, very hectic qualifying. As we said, many cars in this race today. We have a total I've lost count of how many cars are in here. I'm counting up to 40 cars here today. So yes, very very expecting carnage on this track. I'm really looking forward to turn one, just like how I'm looking forward to Monaco turn one on Sunday. While these cars are a lot smaller, you can fit more cars into the same space of track. As we look at Danny Henney, who'll be looking for pole position. Luke Power, apologies, who will also be looking for pole position today. Apologies. Luke Power seems to be channeling maybe Danny Henney vibes, who, as I said, has been a former champion of the Missed Apex multiple times, who is very used to running that trademark red livery. The Ferrari badges will give it away. Luke Power trying to channel Charles Leclerc of FP1 and FP2 and of last year. As qualifying has just got started, we have 10 minutes. It is going to be a tricky qualifying here. We're going to see lap times get quicker and quicker with this open session. Track position is key, as it is in real life with an open qualifying session. Not something we see on iRacing, as qualifying is normally a closed session, so you have the track to yourself. But here you can fit as many laps in as you want within the time limit, but you need to ensure you get a clean lap. Now, in the F3 car, with the tyre model that is on this car, the tyres do take a while to get up to temperature, as with the fuel that is burned off. A fixed amount of fuel every single car has, every single driver available to them. So really, theoretically, we should see lap times get quicker and quicker. We should see pole position be around a mid to low 21 second with a fair field spread throughout. But of course, track position and not getting held up with so many cars out on circuit is going to be key. So who will be able to get out first? So we've got Alex Dobbsberger, who is a very regular member of the Missed Apex community, especially in iRacing and in the karting events, and he will be looking at trying to get off to a good start in this season. Andy Flagg close behind, as is Daniel Cook and Mark Greenhalgh. But we're going to stay on board with Alex Dobbsberger, who seems to have a pretty clear track ahead of him, and we'll see how he will be able to fare with this first lap as he heads down to the first corner with everyone close behind. Many drivers still in the pit lane waiting for the track to clear, but they'll have to be careful, of course, of that timer running out, as we have 8 minutes remaining. As he heads round the first corner, careful on throttle there on the exit, and you can see the gravel there, just slightly dipping his wheels into the gravel, not losing any time there, as the cut tyres are still getting up to temperature, trying to hit the apex there, unlike we saw Spanners achieve in the track guide here. He did his best, we will admit, but Dobbsberger there, who has been able to hit the apex and get a nice exit. It's so important to get on throttle early, and you are full throttle all the way down to the braking zone here as he heads down the gears, nice and sharp turning, and then it's all about opening up this sharp left-hander. And then the next one, good exit there on the first lap. Looks like a good banker thus far, but really where all the time is won or lost is in this last sector. You go the slowest part of the track here, you go through here slowest out of the whole lap, but it's so important to your overall lap time, as we can see him kiss the apexes there. It looks to be a good banker lap, but of course he'll be looking to improve lap after lap. Do expect the drivers to be able to get probably at least 4 or 5 laps in here with this time, of course, all in relation to whether the traffic is kind to you. So 122.2 is the benchmark set there by Alex Dobbsberger, with Daniel Cook coming 4 tenths behind. You can see Tim Ellis, also a long-term staple of this series, as James Gill goes in 2 tenths ahead of him. There we go, in the 121s there. We're expecting low 21s for this pole position, as Danny Henney pips James Gill by less than a tenth of a second. How often I am used to saying that this season in Formula One, with every pole position being less than separated less than a tenth. And at the moment, with this first lap that has been set, as we're on board with Danny Henney in his trademark red livery, it is less than a tenth between James Gill, who has been a participant of the Missed Apex community for a few years now. But lots of drivers getting lap times in, as we can see on the timing tower there, varying amounts of gaps at the moment. And of course, there is a reverse grid for the sprint race afterwards. So if you are unable to qualify well in this first race, it is all about just keeping it clean in the main race so that you do have a decent opportunity of starting further up the grid in the second race this evening. 20 minutes is the second race, 30 minutes is the main race with a mandatory pit stop as we're on board with Danny Henley. And let's see how he can improve on this second lap. As we said, as his tyres get up to temperature and the fuel load starts to burn off, we do expect to see the lap time decrease. But he's gone wide there, a bit of understeer in the last corner, sends him wide out into the gravel. And well, is it an improvement? It's still an improvement there, but Alex Doxberger actually improved better. As we said, low 21s there. And so Danny Henny, that last corner potentially costed him a considerable amount of time and potentially provisional pole as he runs through the gravel again. These drivers on the limit. James Gill, the top three, separated by less than a tenth. Danny Henny and James Gill are separated by 1,000th of a second, ladies and gentlemen. So close between those front three as we head on board with Andy Flagg, who is currently fighting for that top 5 position, 2 tenths behind. The field spread here, there is not a lot between them at all. It looks like I'm watching an F1 qualifying session with how close the qualifying is between the top 20 at this moment in time. Of course, we have more than 20 cars than an F1 grid, as we have over 30 odd at the moment. Only 30 odd who have set lap times. Some drivers may be thinking about not setting lap times whatsoever and just focusing on the race in front of them. Of course, we are predicting plenty of carnage here with this many cars on circuit, and I don't blame them whatsoever as Andy Flagg dips another wheel into the gravel. Lots of gravel being flicked up through the back of your screen there from drivers as they head out of the last corner, as they're trying to get on throttle as early as possible and maximise the exit. But you can see there a change at the top again. Stephen Williams jumps to the top, so improvements from all drivers in the top 5 there, particularly the top 4. And Stephen Williams has jumped from absolutely nowhere up into P1 and has picked Danny Henny and James Gill, who improved once again into second and third. They improved their lap times, but it wasn't good enough. Stephen Williams in an all-time favourite livery of mine, the West livery of McLaren, but was made famous by Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard, a former teammate of mine in the Le Mans 24 Hours. He's at the top of the timer screens at the moment. He loves this F3 car, and he'll be looking to get a good start here in the Missed Apex F3 Challenge. But with just over 3 minutes remaining, there's probably another 2 laps available for these drivers as Stephen moves out of the way to let Danny Henny through, who is looking to improve. He is looking to improve on that 21.134. Could we see them sneak into the 20s in the last couple of laps here? It is really all about this last lap, but how much has traffic fared? Danny, dip of the wheel for the gravel there, trying to maximise his exit, and you can see that dip of the left rear onto the gravel. Is he able to improve here and finally get that pole position, but he so desperately wants? No, it's a 121.124. Not an improvement from Danny. It was it was an improvement. Apologies, the timing data just taking a while to come through there. He only improved by 100th of a second. Stephen Williams still at the top. James Gill unable to improve at this moment in time. The closing stages, they are definitely going to get one more lap in after this one they're on currently. So 2 more time laps available to them. James Gill there with the learner plates on his livery, maybe to give those who are ahead of him an idea to move out of the way. As I'm being informed, James Gill is currently going through his driving test at the moment. So good luck, James, to your theory and driving test. Hopefully you're able to pass it. If you don't pass it first time, then, well, I thankfully, this commentator here has one up over you. It's not that it's a competition, but just saying. But at the moment, it is Stephen Williams, pole position, Danny Henny, P2, James Gill, P3, Alex Doxberger, P4, as they are all about to cross the finish line again. Update on some of those a little bit further back. Tim Ellis is in P8. Missed Apex MotoGP host Cole Power is in 13th. 14th now as Daniel Cook goes ahead of him. As we can see, a couple of changes for position, a bit further up as they have 1 minute 20 remaining of this qualifying session. So Carl Power unable to get a decent lap in at this moment in time. You do expect him to be someone who would be fighting towards the front of this grid. Spanners, who seems to maybe have found a few apexes, guys, as he is currently in P16, 8 tenths behind Stephen Williams at the moment there. Let's see how Spanners can get on as he comes across to finish another time lap, and will he be able to improve? Currently in 16th, and he stays where he is, P16 at the moment for Spanners. A slight improvement, I think it was, but not a lot. Carl Power, his best lap is a 1:21.6. That's currently, at this moment in time, just over half a second back from Stephen Williams in pole position. He doesn't need a lot to jump quite far up this starting grid as it currently stands, as he heads down into the sharp braking zone of the tight hairpin there that is turn 5 through the tight left-handers here, trying to maximize the exit and cover as much track as possible so that he can maximize that throttle input. There he goes down into the slow corner that is turn 8, and well, how is his exit here? Is the dirty air in front of him from this traffic going to affect him at all? This F3 car is affected by dirty air, as you can see. Carl trying to get on throttle as early as, and he pits. Carl Power pits, so Carl will start from, at best, 13th place as it currently stands. Stephen Williams is on provisional pole. 1 minute 45 seconds remaining of this session. He has done a 1:21.0.82. He is 0.04 of a second ahead of Danny Henney, as there is a big lockup ahead of him. Hopefully that hasn't been able to hinder his chances here. It might actually benefit him from a cheeky toe down this back straight. It looked like he got a great entry and exit out of the all-important turn 4 corner as he heads into the braking zone. But will the car ahead play ball, as there's another lockup from that car ahead of him at this moment in time, as they've spun right in front of him, and thankfully for Stephen, he was able to miss him. We're not sure if that would have affected him at all, but it seems like he's been able to get through and that car spun out of his way. So we'll stay on board with Stephen here to see if he can improve. 0.04 of a second ahead of Danny Henney. James Gill in P3, 0.05 of a second further back. The top 3 separated by less than 100 of a second. No, Stephen Williams pits. So I think that is it. I think these drivers, the majority of them, have reached the limit. They've reached the end of their fuel limit as James Gill comes across the line. Can he improve here and snatch pole position at the end? No, he cannot. A 1:21.252 that lap was. So yes, many drivers there now come to the end of this session with 30 seconds remaining. There are only a few drivers remaining out on circuit, and it looks like Stephen Williams has been able to nab pole position there for the first race of this season 9 of the Missed Apex F3 Challenge. But it's all to play for with a 30-minute race with a mandatory pit stop ahead of us. So as our drivers line up in preparation for the first race this season, let's have a look at the final grid for this first race. Stephen Williams on pole position with Danny Henney in 2nd, James Gill 3rd, Andy Flagg in 4th, Greg Gomez in 5th, Alex Dobbsberger in 6th, Luke Power 7th, Tim Ellis 8th, Alex Smith 9th, Sam Harper 10th, Tero in 11th, Mark Greenhow in 12th, Carl Power 13th, Daniel Cook 14th, Shane Cotter 15th, Sam Watley 16th, Spanners 17th, James Wingfield 18th. Matt Strong 19th, Colton Myers 20th, Jose Koigi in 21st, John Cox 22nd, Alex Maru in 23rd, Matthew Brittle in 24th, Richard Morden 25th, Adrian Clark 26th, Callum Hunter 27th, Laurie Smith 28th, John Lang 29th, Tom Jenkinson 30th, Matt Cook 31st, Barry Kemp 32nd, Dimitri in 33rd, Stephen Taylor 34th, Mike Stoner 35th, Gene Z Van Gene in 36th. And at the rear here is Todd Owen in 37th and Richard Muscolini in 38th. That is our grid for this 30-minute race, main race with a mandatory pit stop at Okayama Circuit. What is in store for us here? This is the most amount of cars I have seen at this circuit ever in my time participating on iRacing and viewing iRacing, so I have no idea what is in store, but I'm sure it's going to be a cracker as we are just waiting for the final drivers to line up on the grid. Maybe we will have some drivers thinking about starting from the pit lane to avoid the no doubt first lap carnage. We have 5 lights on, and it is lights out. Away we go as Stephen Williams moves over to cover off the great start of Danny Henny as they head down into turn 1. Danny Henny gets down into turn 1, but Stephen Williams uses the grip on the outside to swoop round Danny Henny and maintain that first position there, with James Gill looking up the inside of Danny Henny as they head through turn 2. And as there's a crash in the background there, not entirely sure who that is, but Stephen Williams making use of Danny Henny regaining the position of James Gill there. Those two fighting, and an all-important gap here for Stephen Williams as they head down the back straight for the first time. The slipstream here is going to be powerful as James Gill will no doubt be utilising this to try and make an overtake back on Danny Henny. But Danny Henny currently did very well as there's drivers all over the place here in the first corner. As we predicted, it seems to be that some of these drivers are unable to continue and they'll have to tow to the pit lane here as we rejoin the battle for first place as Stephen Williams holds on as we look back there, and yes, you can see the dust in the background. This driver here unfortunately has no rear wing, no downforce through the fastest corner on the circuit that is turn 2. You definitely need a rear wing and downforce to keep that car in control, but fast repairs are available here and they no doubt will be able to get back away, and all is not forgotten for them. There is another opportunity in the sprint race which will be occurring after the main race here, but it is currently at the end of the first lap. Stephen Williams leads by 2 tenths from Danny Henny, who is all under his rear wing here. He held him off after a great start into the first corner. James Gill just lost a couple of positions there. As you can see, the gravel all over the track there. That will affect these drivers' grip as they head into the braking zone through and get on the throttle through turn 1. James Gill in third place, just under a second back. He'll be wanting to close up to try and utilise the slipstream as Danny Henny looks for a move and pokes a nose down into turn 4 to try and unsettle Stephen Williams, and I think it has worked. As Danny Henny has definitely closed that gap there. He got a much better exit. Will Stephen Williams go defensive down into the inside as we're on board with Danny Henny? Will he go for the move or will he hold back? No, Danny's going to go for it. He's late on the brakes, but Stephen Williams leaves him room, and Stephen Williams was far enough ahead to maintain that grip and get enough power on exit. And well, unfortunately for Danny, while he's trying to attack Stephen here for the lead, he's allowed James Gill to close up behind, who is also followed by Alex Dobbsberger and Tim Ellis. It's very close with this front leading pack, and all it takes is for these drivers to go side by side for just a couple of corners, and it allows those behind to get involved. Well, what a great start it was from Stephen Williams. He couldn't ask for a better start as he held off Danny Henny, and James Gill tried to take advantage of Danny Henny trying to go for that first place move as we complete the second lap of 22 here. Remember, there is a mandatory pit stop that these drivers have to take. When will they take them? They'll be looking, no doubt, on their relatives to see when is a good time to take that pit stop and come out in clean air. With a big field here of over 36 cars, 38 cars to be exact, with still a majority of them still out on circuit. We still have 35 runners out on track at this moment in time. No, apologies, more than that. 36 cars out on track at this moment in time. There is a there is the possibility of coming out behind those and getting held up, even with blue flags available, as Danny is looking for that move again down on the inside into turn 4. He's going for it, but with the momentum around the outside, Stephen Williams is just able to cover him off as if you're on the outside of turn 4, you are then on the inside of the next couple of corners, which is all important for track position. And Danny Henny needs to be careful here as he's trying to make a decisive move on Stephen Williams. He needs to make it, otherwise he's going to allow James Gill, who will be chomping at the bit, to sneak a nose in there and catch Danny off guard. But at the moment, it is Stephen Williams leading from Danny Henny as they're approaching the last corner here, with James Gill under a second back from the leader. In third place, Alex Dobbsberger in P4, as is Tim Ellis. Tim Ellis only 1.5 seconds further back there. You can see on your screen how close the leading pack is, how close the top 10 is. Not a lot to separate them. All it will take is one incident or a couple of corners, half a lap where these drivers go side by side, and then we have multiple drivers in position to lead this race. As Danny Henny seems to have got a good run there on Stephen Williams. And Stephen Williams, is he going to let Danny Henny have the lead here? They're close, and Stephen Williams went for the apex there, but saw Danny Henny. Very good awareness from him as he avoided a potential collision and big incident there. As that's allowed, and that's compromised Stephen Williams' exit, and that's allowed James Gill to potentially have an opportunity here. And Danny Henny covers the inside. He finally gets it done. You thought maybe it's turn 4 as James Gill sees an opportunity on Stephen Williams. Will that outside line work for Stephen Williams as he's done so often? But no, I think James Gill has got the driver as they're still side by side. James Gill has just got ahead of Stephen Williams as he goes to the defence there. And Stephen Williams is being sent up the inside by Alex Dobersberger. Stephen Williams, who was first place when he started lap 4, unfortunately has now lost 2 positions. He's in P3. He did drop down to P4. He's still fighting with Alex Dobersberger. He covers the inside line through the second to last corner, and well, that was a half a lap that I think Stephen Williams will want to forget as he is now into 3rd place. It's pretty good going that he's in 3rd place, but for how long? Because Alex Dobersberger is looking to send it up the inside there and force Stephen Williams out of position. And Stephen needs to just think more so about look ahead, more so in his rear view mirrors. But that for Stephen Williams was not the best lap. He is still in P3, but it could have been so much worse with Tim Ellis very close behind, as is Alex Smith in P6, Mark Greenhow in P7. The top 10 are separated by not a lot whatsoever. The top 7 in particular are very close. A couple of corners wheel to wheel as Stephen Williams is going defensive here as Alex Dobersberger has the drive, but does he have the overspeed to carry it around the outside? We've seen Stephen Williams, this move work for him as he's gone on the defensive. The outside becomes the inside, as you can see there from the overhead shot, and he's locked up Alex there, and that's really cost him a bit of time, and that could put him susceptible to an attack from Tim Ellis behind there. Good fair racing from Alex and Stephen Williams there. Great side-by-side action. But while this has been occurring, Danny Henny is 1 second ahead of James Gill at the moment. He's pulling out a lead while he has clean air. This F3 car is susceptible to dirty air. He is up there at the moment. But let's have a check-in on Spanners, shall we? Currently in P10. He's pitting. He's one of the first drivers to pit. There's no visible damage on Spanners' car. Let's have a chat with Spanners and see what his plan of action is right now, shall we? Spanners, it seems like you've decided to pit early. What's the thinking behind this?
Daniel Cook was faster than me, and he was like, I don't want to get into a race. But a few of the cars pitted out away from me, and I thought, okay, now I'm in a steady place behind Wingfield. But now, look at this, I'm stuck behind Watley.
That's the risk. We wondered if it was a bold strategy, if it was a 200 IQ move. We'll see how it plays out for you.
No, I know. I think I've got to make up 2 spots to get reverse grid pole.
Well, we'll leave you to it. Crack on, and we'll see how you get on with this early pit stop. There we go. Forced into it, Spanners. So not a 200 IQ move that we thought it may be, but that mandatory pit stop he does no longer have to worry about. He can race to the end now with, if my maths is correct, 16 laps remaining. 16 laps remaining. Maths isn't my strong suit. Apologies, guys. I need an Excel spreadsheet to help me with maths. But let's rejoin the lead, shall we, and have an update. Danny Henny leads from James Gill, 1.2 seconds now, so he's extended that lead out up front. Stephen Williams holding on to P3, settling down after that horror of a half a lap there. Thankfully now able to potentially secure himself a podium or push on to get back those positions with plenty of racing still to be had. Alex Dobersberger is in P4 with Tim Ellis in P5. Alex Smith is in P6. Mark Greenhouse 7th. Sam Harper is in 8th and James Wingfield P9. Daniel Cook is 10th with Tero Tylers down in 11th place. Colton Myers is in 12th with John Cox not far behind. Jeansy Van Gene is in P14 at the moment with Richard Malden not far behind. Jeansy Van Gene is very close at the moment. He's having a very decent battle out there, very close to John Cox, and we'll stay on board with him to see how he can get on. He is on the Missed Apex podcast this weekend with myself as he locks up there into turn into turn 5 and just misses that apex, no pun intended there. Taking the literal name of the podcast, as Spanners did earlier in his track guide. He's going to have a go at me for that, but I think we should keep mentioning it, ladies and gentlemen. But Jeansy Van Gene. You can see that the tighter lines that he's using compared to David Cox is allowing him just to close up in that last sector. But with the dirty air and trying to get on throttle as early as possible, you can see the rear of that car squirreling about as James Gill sets the fastest lap of the race. That's got his gap down at the front to just over a second now. He's still a little bit too far back to get the toe and the slipstream of Danny Henny. He needs to be under 8 temps to benefit from that, which is so essential to having an opportunity to overtake here. Maybe Danny Henny at this stage of the race just looking after his tyres to ensure that he has plenty of grip at the end of this race. It is a very high loaded circuit here on the fronts and the rears with such varying sectors. So as Carl Power is down in 17th, I'm not entirely sure what has happened to Carl Power. I believe actually he's made his pit stop, as Luke Power is also down in 18th as well, just one position behind him. So lots of drivers making their pit stops quite early in this race as they are trying to do the undercut and gain positions on those who are potentially fighting and losing time out up front. Many of those up front, we do expect them to make a pit stop a little bit later on in this race to try and maintain track position. But we can see the pit stop lost time here is 22 to 23 seconds. So that is something no doubt the front runners will be taking into consideration to try and find themselves a reasonable gap to come out into. But with 9 laps on our 9th lap at this moment, Danny Henny is still leading 1 second ahead of James Gill, as Stephen Williams has been chipping away at the gap to James Gill. 1.4 seconds is the gap now, just out to 1.5 there through the second corner. But Alex Dobbersberger is within that toe. You can see there under a second, as is Tim Ellis. So the top 7 really close right now. What is the strategy? What is going through these drivers' heads? Do they take an opportunity if they see it, or do they try and work together with still 13 laps remaining at this round 1 in this main race at Okayama in the Missed Apex F3 Challenge? Lots of decisions to be made by these drivers. And do they think about the undercut? No doubt they're all weighing up that decision right now, looking heavily at their relatives and where they are in relation to those behind. But Carl Power and Luke Power, who have made that sole pit stop at the moment, we'll keep an eye on their progression to see where they come out. But Jeansy Van Gene is currently half a second behind John Cox as it currently stands in 13th at the moment. Missed Apex Palace. Let's get Jeansy Van Gene into the chat and see how he is getting on, and will potentially interrupt his race. Apologies, seems I'm having issues with dragging Jeansy Van Gene in, but as we keep on board with him right now, he's looking to try and overtake John Cox. We'll see how he gets on. He is closer than he's ever been. You can see there the extra grip that he has available and confidence right under the rear wing of John Cox. It looks like it's probably more so a matter of when, not if, at this moment in time. Let's stay on board with him as he'll be thinking about a good exit through turn 4 to try and utilise the slipstream. You can see there the gap visibly gets smaller as he breaks into turn 4 there, but as he breaks too late, it's all about throttle on the exit. Is he going to be able to utilise the slipstream here? Will he have enough? Of course, fixed setups, everyone's running the same setups here, so no advantage in relation to top speed other than utilising that slipstream, and he just quite didn't have enough, so maybe getting a bit too close there, a bit too late on the brakes when it came to turn 4 and over-egged and compromised his exit. But there's still plenty of corners, plenty of racing to happen here. And does Alex think he can get this here, or does he decide to pit early and just pit into potentially some clean air, as he's currently down in 13th place? A snap of oversteer there, you can see, get it on throttle as John Cox actually pits and gets out of the way and provides Jeansy some free air, as we can see some puff of smoke ahead of us as drivers are still using the track to its absolute limits here. That will be a blessing you would think, for Jeansy Van Gien as he sees the clean air ahead of him as he was getting stuck behind John there, not quite able to make the overtake as he got onto the rear wing. But he'll be looking to try and utilise this free air and set some decent lap times in and be thinking about a pit stop and where he can pit out into. But James Gill at the front at the moment has got that gap. He just briefly, it has done there. You can see there is teetering on the edge of just under 1 second. It is changing from corner to corner at the moment as James Gill seems to be approaching the rear wing of Danny Henny. He's still just outside of that out of that slipstream as Stephen Williams. It seems James Gill has turned on the afterburners here as Stephen Williams has dropped back down to 2 seconds. He's almost pulled half a second on Stephen Williams, so maybe dropping back a little bit was by design by James Gill, or maybe it's Danny Henny struggling, as we saw a bit more understeer from the last corner there as he dips a wheel through the gravel. No such from James Gill. Let's see how he gets on through this lap with 10 laps remaining. We're on lap 12 as it currently stands. Danny Henny leading from James Gill. He'll be loving to start this season off with a race. But there's someone is off there a lap car as it's, apologies, not quite caught who that was. They've got no rear wing, so there's been contact there. It's Jose who has had contact there. He's lost his rear wing. He's either gone into the barriers or been collected by another driver. We'll see if we can catch a replay of that, but that no doubt will be a pit stop for him as he won't want to continue around this circuit with no rear wing. We saw how that fared for a few drivers at the first lap. So into the pits for Jose. That's a real shame for him there. Let's watch the replay as it was contact, and it's a real shame. Jose completely a victim there due to an attempt down into what was turn 5. Maybe turn 4, apologies. But yes, very, very lightest of touches as unfortunately lost him his rear wing as there's another driver around. Drivers at the end here, halfway through this race, are starting to lose control of their cars. Maybe they're starting to feel the weariness of their tyres as James Gill is all over the back of Danny Henny. I'm not entirely sure if that lap car there got in the way. It may have done and may have compromised Danny Henny's exit, but James Gill won't care because he is all under the rear wing of Danny Henny. As you can see the dirty air at play as the understeer turning the steering wheel, and it does, the front end does not want to turn in. Of course, these two drivers yet to make a pit stop, but they're pulling away from P3 of Stephen Williams, who's also coming under attack himself from Alex Dobertsberger. But let's see James Gill. How is his grip? How is his exit through turn 4 here? Danny Henny a little bit wider. Some varying lines I've seen be used through turn 4. And, well, it seems that Danny Henny is going defensive there, trying to cover the inside line. He is wary of James Gill. He feels a bit threatened right now, the multiple missed Apex champion. How will he fare with the young, currently learning driver James Gill? He's definitely not a learner in iRacing, but in real life he currently is. He is a dab handy behind the sim rig though. But you can see there how impactful the dirty air is. 4 tenths behind Danny Henny it is right now. He got 2 tenths behind down into the first corner, but you can see that lack of grip. He's trying to utilise some different lines to try and straighten out his exits to try and get an advantage on Danny, but we'll see if Danny will be able to handle the pressure as Alex Dobertsberger, fighting for the podium position, is all under the rear wing as well of Stephen Williams, but he runs wide there, and you can see that understeer through the last corner as we've seen so often today in this race. As we go on board with him down into the first corner, he seems to be a bit tighter into that apex though than Stephen Williams ahead, even with him being behind and Stephen Williams having that clean air ahead. As you can see, the rear of the car just stepping out a little bit from Stephen, and that has allowed Alex to close in a bit. As you can see on the relative in the timing tower, that come down almost a tenth there as Stephen Williams runs wide through turn 4. He is going to be under risk here potentially from a late move from Alex Dobertsberger. How powerful is this slipstream going to be? I think he might be just a little bit far back, but we have seen Stephen Williams come under attack here into turn 4 before, and well, with these drivers still yet to make a pit stop as they both lock up into turn 4. They're both drivers, not what they needed. The tyres at this moment in time are on the limits, it seems, and well, with these drivers pushing as much as they can to try and gain as much time and gain position, we are starting to see more and more mistakes up and down the field. But those two there, as Stephen Williams goes a bit wide, there as he's really lost time there to to Alex Dobbersberger. Alex Dobbersberger is less than 2 tenths behind Stephen Williams at this moment in time as he comes through the last corner. You can see the understeer from Stephen Williams. Alex Dobbersberger's got much better traction out of the last corner as they head through that gravel, not affecting their traction as they head down the start-finish straight, but down into the first corner. Alex Dobbersberger go for the move. Stephen Williams sees it late. Does he have the grip, Alex? He's side by side, but Stephen Williams will have the inside as they head through turn 4. But how much traction will Alex Dobbersberger have out of this fourth corner, out of this second corner? He's going to be going on the attack down into turn 4. Stephen Williams goes defensive as he's going to try and go around the outside. How much grip does he have? They're still side by side. Unbelievable racing as you can see the squirreling of Alex Dobbersberger's car. Is he going to dip in behind the slipstream of Stephen Williams? He is, but there's a lap car there very close between the two of them. Will Stephen Williams be able to hold this and defend it down the inside? He has the advantage at the moment, and yes, with a little lock-up again, Stephen Williams holds on to the lead from Alex. Unbelievable, great, clean racing for the two of them, by the two of them. But all this has done has brought Tim Ellis into this fight, who is now half a second behind them, frothing at the mouth to get involved and snatch a late podium here. We have 7 laps remaining. These drivers still have a pit stop to make. How will that affect them? And where will they come out once they make this pit stop? Remember, as speaking of Devil, Alex Dobbersberger is the first driver in the top 5 to dive into the pit lane. Apologies, no, Danny Henney is diving into the pit lane as well. So we've seen Danny Henney dive into that pit lane as Luke Power, one of those early pitters, is looking to overtake Mark Greenhow and get into P11. It's important for his chances for a decent finish if he can get past him. As he's got a snap of oversteer out of the second to last corner, third to last corner. Very good car control there from Luke, but unfortunately, his attack on Mark Greenhow ahead has unfortunately faltered with that, but it could have ended so much worse with him going around. That is how treacherous these tyres are at the moment. That is how treacherous the dirty areas. As Danny Henney, where does he come out? Danny Henney has come out in 16th place, and I think Danny Henney has lost a considerable amount of time here as he has come out down in 18th, 20th position. So with Luke Power, who has made, as Danny Henney is still in the pit lane. Sorry, that's why he's dropping down the timing screens at the moment. Did he get potentially a pit stop penalty? Did he get a penalty? I believe he maybe have done, or was it just brand new tyres that he decided to take? So he has made a pit stop. I can't see that he's got a drive-through penalty there, but potentially that is the case for Danny Henney, which is why he was held for so long at the end. A lot of time lost for our race leader. He is now down in 24th place with only 6 laps remaining. James Gill crosses the start-finish line as Stephen Williams is in the pits, as is Tim Ellis. We'll keep an eye out on those two to see where they rejoin, but Danny Henney, unfortunately, after a brilliant start and gaining first place, is out. Is down in 24th place as Alex Dobbersberger comes around the start-finish straight. And well, Alex Dobbersberger, where is he going to come out compared to these drivers? So Stephen Williams is coming out just ahead of Alex there. The undercut nearly working, but of course, Stephen Williams has just made a pit stop. He could be susceptible here to an overtake of Alex Dobbersberger, who is in the rhythm, and you can see there the dust float fighting up there as James Gill is still out and yet to pit. Will Alex Dobbersberger be able to go for a move? We saw these two go side by side just before Alex decided to pit, but the undercut hasn't worked for Alex. Stephen responded to it, and well, he holds on to the lead and needs to continue their brilliant battle that they have had throughout this race. As Alex in the slipstream there, you can see trying to poke a nose as Stephen Williams moves to the middle of the track to try and cover it off. We've seen these drivers, they have been locking up left, right and centre into that corner as they're on the very limit. Tim Ellis as it was, and this gap between this front three is as it was before they decided to pit. So very interesting times for them. James Gill still out there yet to pit with Alex Smith in P2. And no, they're both into the pits. James Gill is now pitted. Alex Smith is now pitted. So let's see where James Gill comes out. Is he able to maintain the lead as these three, Stephen Williams, Alex Dobbersberger and Tim Ellis, make their way around the last couple of corners? Of course, Danny Henney held in his pit stop with a potential drive stop go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. We'll get confirmation of that afterwards. There's a driver off in the background. Tero Tylers has... Is that Tero? No, it's not Tero. Apologies. I'm struggling to see who exactly that was in the background who lost control of their car, but it was for position as James Gill comes back out into P2 and holds a 3-second lead, importantly, over Stephen Williams. Alex Dobbersberger in P4, of course, trying to chase down what now is net P3, with James Wingfield yet to still make a pit stop. We're in the closing stages of this race, guys. If you have been enjoying this Missed Apex F3 Championship, hit that like and subscribe button. Of course, as always, follow the Missed Apex podcast and become a Patreon of this series. Is free to enter. If you're interested, you can join the Discord and get involved with racing our Missed Apex panelists. But of course, as always, it is, while it's not funded, it is nice to show support for those who have taken time out of their day to put this on for you, and a tip jar is available. But thank you everyone for tuning in and participating as always, as we have 4 laps remaining once James Gill crosses the time, as we can see. But James Wingfield has now gone into the pit lane and made his pit stop. James Gill takes the lead of this race with him starting in P3. He had an attempt he got past Danny Henney on the first lap, but Danny Henney took it back. Danny Henney overtook Stephen Williams a few laps later, and well, due to that drive-through penalty, as James Gill was closing down Danny Henney into that pit stop window, James Gill has taken ownership of this lead. He has a 3-second advantage over Stephen Williams, who is still holding off the charging Alex Dobbersberger, as Danny Henney there down in 22nd place. He will be looking at that reverse sprint pole, if possible, to try and maximise what is now a disappointing main race for him and a start to this weekend. We will catch up with Danny afterwards to see exactly what occurred. But yes, Tim Ellis up there in P4, Alex Smith in P5. Spanners, who pitted very early on, is still where he pitted from P14 at the moment. Jeansy Van Gene, he was looking to get ahead of John Cox when he was pitting. He is now into P16 and has 2 places ahead of John Cox, but not where he would be liking to finish. A top 10 would be on the cards for him. And Spanners is in a fight of his own at the moment with James Wingfield, who did come out of the pit lane, and he's being very closely followed by Sam Watley. We'll see how this battle progresses at the moment, as the front 4 are kind of as they were as we approach the closing laps of this race. Sam Watley looking to close down Spanners. Let's see how he gets on at this moment in time. Of course, Jeansy Van Gene is close behind as well. He's looking to capitalise and see how they get on, and hoping to nab a couple of positions if they go side by side. We've seen drivers already capitalise on those battles ahead, as we can see further up on the timing screens. But Luke Power, who pitted very early on, is finally trying to get an opportunity overtaking Mark Greenhow. He had that wobble in the last corner. Here we go, a good exit out of turn 4, and you can see there the defensive drive there from Mark Greenhow to try and break the slipstream. Has it been enough for him on Luke Power, as Luke Power tries to show a nose, and it seems to have worked as Mark has locked up through turn 5 there, but he has enough to still defend on the inside. But with another lock up from Mark, but with those tyres, have they peaked? Does he have enough grip in them? With this last slow sector coming up, of course, Luke will be aware. He's followed Mark enough to know his racing lines, to know his braking points, and how much grip will Mark have, and will Luke be able to capitalise on it, as he's looked after his tyres a bit better this time around. And well, it seems that Mark has sustained a charge for an attack from Luke Power for another lap, but with 2 laps remaining, will he be able to? You can see Sam Harper as well, also looking in that position behind a front 2 who are battling out to try and capitalise on them, but we'll stay on board with Luke to see if he'll be able to get this position done, as James Gill has that gap comfortable to 2.6 seconds at the moment. Stephen Williams has been able to close it down, but it's not enough at the moment. He's more so probably looking in his rearview mirrors than he is looking ahead in attacking James Gill. It's all about securing P2 at the moment. He did start on pole position, but a P2 would still be a very respectable result in the first main race of this season, round 1. Alex Dobbersberger, another lock-up, big lock-up there from Alex Dobbersberger in the closing stages. 2 laps to go. We're on the penultimate lap here as Sam Watley is on the attack of Spanners. We'll stay on board with this battle. Spanners would love to hold on to P14. He pitted very early, He wouldn't want to lose a position in the closing stages. But we'll see how he gets on down into turn 5. And a little lock up from Spanners has left him susceptible. How good of an exit has Sam got? It seems that Spanners got away with it. We have seen drivers lock up into that corner as there was another puff of smoke there as the tyres are still hot after those lockups and they lose grip in the subsequent corners. Spanners has got away with it, as we've seen multiple drivers do. Jeansy unfortunately unable to close down on this too at the moment. Very tricky in dirty air, of course, as we see the rear of Jeansy's blue and red car there snap out as Sam dips a wheel on the grass and dips a wheel very heavily into the grass there. How's that affected his exit out of the last corner? I think Jeansy may have followed him a little bit, as is so often the case with the following car, but no, that gap has closed quite significantly as Jeansy does get that gap to under half a second, but Sam recovers, gets some confidence and ends up pulling away. James Gill, though, a brilliant drive from him on those learner plates. He definitely isn't a learner here today, as he has inherited this first place. He took the second place away from Danny Henney briefly on the first lap. He has never truly fought and overtaken for that first place win position, but he has been there to capitalise on the mistakes of others. He was closing Danny Henney down in the pit at the pit stop window, and with Danny's mistake, with an unknown penalty that held him within the pits, James took full advantage and never looked back, and he wins the first race of the season 9 of the Missed Apex F3 Challenge. James Gill in first, Stephen Williams in second, Alex Dobbersberger unfortunately unable to get past Stephen Williams in P3. Tim Ellis is in P4. Alex Smith is in P5. Mark Greenhow comes across the line in P6. Luke Power in 7th, unable to dispatch Mark Greenhow there at the end. And, well, that was a much cleaner race than I was personally expecting. Ladies and gentlemen, a great start to this season at Okayama. Some brilliant wheel-to-wheel racing, fair and respectful. And I want to see plenty more of it, as we can see the final standings here. Sam Halper in P8, continuing from where we finished. Carl Power in P9, Daniel Cook 10th, Shane Cotter 11th, Taro Titus in 12th, James Wingfield in 13th, the last of the pitters. Spanners in 14th, Sam Watley unable to catch Spanners there and overtake him in 15th, but able to hold off Jeansy Van Geen in 16th, Colton Myers in 17th, John Cox in 18th. Well, let's have a chat with our race winner, shall we? James Gill, and see how he feels about this. James, first race winner of season 9. How was that, buddy?
Yeah, it was a really good race. Shame that Danny had to get that black flag. I think it would have been a really good race between us two.
Yeah, definitely benefited from it, but he was closing him down significantly in the closing stages of that pit window. So, yeah, great race, buddy, and hopefully there'll be many more. Congrats.
Thank you.
Let's have a chat with Mr. Danny Henney, shall we, and see what occurred there with him. Apologies, I can't seem to find Danny. Seems like he may have left. No, apologies, I have found Danny. There we go. Danny boy. What happened there, buddy?
What, in the race?
The pit stop.
Just hit a bit of grass on the entry. It's just absolute stupid rule. Literally clipped a bit of grass and it said I had an unsafe entry, so it held me for 4. They're absolutely destroyed the night. Up till that, pretty good.
We were wondering what occurred there because you just stopped entirely. So yeah, just watching your replay now and seeing where it is, and I must admit it looks very innocuous to me. So yes, a bit hard done by, but I think you are starting towards the front in the sprint race with the reverse grid.
No, I finished 21st, so my night's just got even worse.
Unbelievable. Apologies for that, but well,
so I was good for James up till that point. It was I think a back marker spun in the last sector and I had to avoid it and just lit the tyres and it just killed the tyres. That's why I bolted for the pits early. And then
it was shaping up to be a very good battle, and I was really looking forward to it. So it is a shame that you got that drive-through penalty, but good racing nonetheless, and good overtake on Stephen Williams. So good luck for the next one.
Yeah, cheers, man.
So that is our main race over and done with. A reverse sprint grid coming up, as you heard from Danny there, the top 20 start in reverse order. So it always provides some great drama with a 20-minute race coming up with no pit stop. Let's see what this race has in store for us.